Chapter 13 Music Awards Part 2 Part 1 Evans? James asked, a wide smile on his face. Lily had never told him about any sort of crush, especially not one on Pandora. James had never thought about how much sense they would make as a couple, and he felt a bit slow for just realizing it now. They were both full of energy, two different sides of the same coin almost. Pandora was erratic. She was always talking and she was very animated about things she loved. Lily was similar, passionate about things she loved, very into science. She once explained to James that the reason she got into being a lighting director was because of her fascination with light waves and the electromagnetic spectrum. James hadn't really understood what she was talking about, but her eyes lit up when she did. So he assumed it must be interesting to her. Since when? He asked Remus, hoping for some sort of an explanation. Why would she tell Remus and not him? He would have felt a bit betrayed had he had not known how close Lily and Remus actually were. Still, he could keep a secret as well as the next guy, and that included Remus. When she came to visit, they spent hours together apparently. Hours? Regulus stood up, crossed the room, and left. Sirius was a bit too caught up with Remus and with the revelation about Lily to really notice that Regulus left. Nobody really noticed, actually, just because of how loud they were all being and how much was going on. Remus were explaining everything he knew about Lily and Pandora. Sirius was obviously transfixed, and Peter was also tuned into the story. Ava was busy blushing, probably a bit embarrassed now. James noticed, though. He saw Regulus's face change in a split second, his expression going dark before he left. Maybe it had only been because he was staring, or, as he preferred to think, he could read Regulus pretty well. He was kidding himself, of course. Regulus was a puzzle, but one where all of the end pieces were missing, and he was supposed to find them. Slowly, one by one, James was starting to put it together. Quietly, he stood up from the couch and went to find him. Nobody had noticed when he slipped away either. Well, nobody except for Peter, who tended to notice everything. He abandoned his drink too, forgetting all about it. He didn't really want to be drunk anyway. He wanted to remember tonight, seeing as it had already started off so well. Regulus had complimented him. You look good, James. James had not stopped thinking about it. His mind kept turning over the soft words and the warm cheeks. He had never seen Regulus be so bashful before, and all because James called him gorgeous. He was counting this as a win. Really, he had held himself back. Gorgeous didn't even begin to cover how Regulus looked. He looked beautiful and regal and angelic. His dark hair was a halo that followed him around, softening his harder features and sharp eyes. No matter how much he tried to cover it up with rude words and blank stares, James noticed. Regulus was heavenly, and James was ready to ascend. But James could not say all of that, so he called Regulus gorgeous and made him blush. He smiled to himself as he walked around looking for Regulus. They were just in the hotel, previously hanging out in the lobby on the floor they were staying in. He would have checked a room first, but he was pretty sure that they hadn't had time to get one. He was quick enough that he found Regulus waiting for the elevator, his entire body language tenser than it had been in the lobby. Had something happened? They were only talking about Lily and Pandora when he left. Reg? James said, getting his attention. Regulus turned around. His face was completely void of any emotion, like he had just shut down. It was something Sirius did sometimes, although James hadn't seen it happen in a while. It was mostly when he had first moved in with the Potters. He would go through times where he would hardly talk to anyone, not even James. He just stared out the window or laid in bed. It happened less frequently as more time went on, but there were still times that he saw hints of it trying to come back. Sirius was stronger now, but nobody was impenetrable. Regulus seemed to flash through the stages of grief in a rapid second, settling on anger eventually when he narrowed his eyes at James. I'm upset with you. Leave me alone. James blinked, refusing to give up that quickly. Did he do something? Was that why Regulus was mad at him? He couldn't remember saying anything that was particularly bad. He was just happy for Lily and for Sirius and for Remus. He was just excited. The elevator dinged and Regulus stepped in, immediately trying to close the door before James could cross the small distance. He couldn't press the button fast enough because James was able to slip in easily, standing next to Regulus in the space. He had half a mind to just stop the elevator, make Regulus talk to him. But he was at least smart enough to know that it was a very bad idea. Regulus's breathing was a bit erratic, as it was. He couldn't imagine that being trapped in an elevator would help matters much. James himself did not love small and confined spaces, although he didn't have a phobia of them like Sirius did. He didn't know if phobias could run in the family, but he did not want to find out like this. Why are you upset with me? James asked. Regulus was looking up at the numbers as they changed the farther down they went. He had picked the first floor, perhaps he planned on making a run for it because. I don't want you to be mad at me. I'm always mad at you. Well, could you at least tell me why? The elevator dinged at the third floor opening to let more people in. Regulus got out, despite the third floor not being his original destination. He went straight for the staircase, and it crossed James's mind that he just hadn't wanted to be in the elevator with a bunch of people. James followed after him a couple of paces behind. He didn't want to crowd him, he just wanted to give him the opportunity to talk. And, well, a tad more selfishly, he wanted to know what he had done to upset Regulus. He almost ran right into him when Regulus stopped on the stairs, sitting at the top of a flight of them, without much of a warning. James skidded so that he wouldn't run into him. You don't need to chase after me. I'm fine, Regulus mumbled. James sat down next to him, careful not to invade his space. I don't mind, he said honestly. He would chase after Regulus for as long as he would let him. Want to talk about it? No. James expected that, so he nodded his head a little bit, even though Regulus was not looking at him. Want to tell me what you're upset with me? Regulus was looking at him now, his expression a bit incredulous. What? Oh, well, I just meant I was just confused as to what I'd done, James said, stuttering over his words. It was hard to talk when the heat of Regulus's gaze was all over him. Anybody else in his position would have reacted the same way. Regulus coughed a little bit, tilting his head as he looked at James even deeper. You really can handle someone not liking you, can you? He asked. James had never thought about it before, but he supposed Regulus was right. James did not like when people didn't like him. He was a likable person. What was there to hate? And yeah, maybe he was going a bit out of his mind to figure out what he had specifically done to Regulus in the last 15 minutes that prompted this strong of a negative reaction. So what? No, not really, he responded. You know that's unhealthy, right? I don't see how. He didn't. What was wrong with trying to make everyone happy? James was good at it. He didn't mind doing it. You can't appease everyone. Why not? Because not everybody is going to like you. Exhibit A, James mumbled. Regulus didn't react in the way James had expected him to. James had been snappy with him, maybe a bit frustrated, and it made Regulus smile. What? He shrugged. Tap into your anger more. I don't like being angry. It's healthy. Well, always being angry isn't healthy, James pointed out to him. I'm not always angry, he defended. You could let yourself be happy. I couldn't. You could. Potter, a threat. Reg, a term of endearment. James couldn't explain why, but arguing with Regulus made his stomach swoop with excitement. It was different than anything else he had really experienced before. He wasn't entirely sure what to do with it. He sighed, looking back towards the stairs, fingers tapping his thumb in a pattern that James was focused on figuring out. He kept getting distracted, though, by the rings and by the nail polish and his fingers that were long, and he was distracted by how they moved elegantly after years of classical music training. Hey, where'd your cast go? James said, realizing for the first time that Regulus's left arm was suspiciously bare of it. I got it taken off. Well, yeah, but, well, isn't it too soon? Regulus shrugged, not fazed by it at all. It was bothering me. James frowned a little, but Regulus stopped him before he could even say anything. Stop. Stop what? I can feel you worrying, Regulus said, sounding particularly annoyed by the fact. I can't help but care, James told him honestly. Regulus didn't respond for a very long time, but his fingers started dancing faster. James finally got the pattern down. Pointer, middle, ring, pinky, pinky, ring, middle, middle, pointer. Then again from the beginning. It was something that could only be done so mindlessly after doing it for so long. James could barely keep up with it when he tried to do it himself, a bit too clumsy for it, apparently. I was thinking about my father, Regulus said after an eternity of silence. That's why I left. Oh. James knew that for Sirius at least, the news of Orion's death hadn't mattered to him. Sirius had stopped thinking about them years ago. He stopped coming to James crying that they didn't love him, and he accepted the Potters as family just like they had done for Sirius. For Regulus, it was clearly a bit more complex than simple indifference. I hate him. He learned that with Regulus, he needed to just be patient and he would talk of his own accord. James was learning to be patient. Regulus was teaching him how to sit and wait, and maybe, just maybe, what he wanted would come to him in time. I hate that. I don't actually hate him. And I just wish he wasn't dead so I could kill him myself because he was a miserable person who deserved the worst. And I miss him. James, why do I miss him? Regulus said, looking to James for answers. He was your dad, James told him. Sirius doesn't miss him, Regulus mumbled. Well, they disowned him. I hate him. James didn't know who he was referring to, Sirius or Orion. Probably both. Probably neither. You are allowed to miss him. It's normal to feel that way. I'm glad he's dead. That's perfectly fine. I wish he wasn't dead. Regulus, you are allowed to feel all of these things. It doesn't make one more true than another. If it's true for you, then it's true, James told him. It doesn't make any sense, though. Does it need to? Regulus glanced up at him only once, and James was just glad to see that there was emotion in his eyes, however fleeting it was. James was a very touchy person, and every couple of seconds he had to fight the urge to reach out and hug him or place a hand on his shoulder. He knew Regulus wouldn't like it, especially not right now. Vulnerability was a hard thing to do. James knew that. He struggled with being anything other than happy or comforting. He didn't know how to be sad. He didn't know what to do when he felt angry. He supposed he was a bit opposite of Regulus in that way. Regulus couldn't accept the good things in his life. He didn't know what to do when he felt. James wanted to show him how to feel. He wanted to learn how to be sad, and he wanted to know Regulus. He wanted Regulus to know him. It was scary. James wanted so much, and he didn't know how to ask for any of it. He couldn't ask for it. It was too selfish. He couldn't be selfish here. I'm upset with you because you told Sirius. Told Sirius? James struggled to remember what he had said to Sirius that would have made Regulus angry. Sirius was preoccupied with Remus since he got back, though, so there wasn't even any time to say anything particularly upsetting. About Mother? Walburga. Whatever. Oh, right. He had done that. James had forgotten all about that. It had been almost a week ago, and the past couple of days were quite busy for him. So he assumed Regulus would just forget about it too. He had forgotten about the sheer tenacity of the Black family, though. Of course, he hadn't simply forgotten about it. James smiled sheepishly. It all worked out in the end, though, didn't it? He asked hopefully. No. Well, you didn't seem upset with me earlier, James pointed out. Regulus shifted position so that his back was leaning against the cement walls. His legs were drawn up, and his whole body was now facing James, feet almost touching his legs. James moved to sit the same way, although he sat crisscross applesauce so that they would both have more space. James himself did not mind when other people invaded his space, but he knew that Regulus did. I was, Regulus confirmed, nodding his head a little bit. James shook his head, his shy smile growing into a real one. I don't think so. No? Why is that? Regulus said, his words atoned. Well, for starters, you told me I look good. Regulus shrugged, although the tips of his ears were red now. So? So, that doesn't sound like anger to me. I can be upset with you and also comment objectively on your appearance. The two can mutually exist. James was probably having far too much fun, but he was indulging himself just this once, unsure if Regulus would ever be so open with him again. Objectively? Regulus blinked at him, looking at James like he was stupid. James did not care. He was an idiot when it came to Regulus. He was well aware of it. Do you really need me to stroke your ego? Regulus said. Yes, James responded immediately. Among other things. Regulus blushed. He blushed, and James was on top of the world. He liked being able to get a reaction out of him, to know what he looked like when he was flustered. Heaven knows Regulus had caused him to react that way more than once. Turnabout's fair play. Are you drunk? He asked, clearly deflecting. I haven't even finished my first drink. Regulus hummed, nodding his head. He looked like he was in a bit of a trance, eyes glowing and unfocused as he looked all around the stairwell, landing on James inevitably. So the confidence is just. He trailed off, leaving James to finish his sentence. All natural, he confirmed. Regulus tried to fight a smile. shaking his head and looking down at his pants, picking at lint that wasn't even there. You're ridiculous. Yeah, James agreed. What else could he do? He stood up then, wiping imaginary dust off his pants. Well, I won't be stroking your ego, James beamed. Okay, but what about. Do not finish that sentence, Regulus interrupted, following James with his eyes as he stood up. James plastered a mock look of innocence on his face. I was going to say my hair, Reg. Get your mind out of the gutter. Regulus's eyes moved to his hair, probably subconsciously, but still, it made James happy. He prided himself in his hair perhaps a bit too much. It was worth it now, though. It had caught Regulus's attention. Touch it. Please touch my hair. James did not really think of himself as a needy man. But right now, he needed Regulus to touch him. His whole body was on fire, and the way he was looking at him, James needed it. As if Regulus read his thoughts, his hand slowly moved up. He twisted one of James's curls in between his fingers, testing out the feeling of it, and then, just once, he ran his fingers through more of it, a concentrated look on his face. James fought against the weaker part of himself, the part that was telling him to just kiss him. James had to be patient. He was learning patience. Regulus pulled his hand back, tucking it behind his back. That's all you get. More than enough for me, James said, completely honest. Good things come to those who wait.